Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We lost a Titan this week. Talk about a shock to the system. On Rosh Hashanah, when we were so vulnerable, at least I was, emotionally torn between celebrating the new year and mourning the great sorrows of our current lives, the news came in of the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. For many of us, it was like a kick in the teeth, an unthinkable loss that could have political consequences for generations. When so many of us are troubled by the state of our country and of the world, her death felt like it could be a nail in the coffin of our democracy itself. I'm not going to eulogize Justice Ginsburg. That was for her family to do. I'm not going to write an obituary. That's for journalists to do. I'm going to talk about her legacy and the lessons for us for right now. If you grew up in my generation, you were on a kind of holiday from many forms of institutionalized sexism. Women were equal to men. This was obvious and non-negotiable. It was obvious to us that women should have the same control of our finances as men. It was obvious to us that women should have the same control over our bodies as men. It was obvious to us that women should have the same access to sports as men. It was obvious to us that women should be paid equally to men. It was obvious to us that women should not be harassed or sexualized or trivialized. It was obvious to us that women should have equal access to academia and to the workplace as men. That vacation from sexism was gifted to my generation by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Words like icon, legend, trailblazer, boundary breaker, role model, and hero, they're all cliches. They're overused to describe everyday people, but not for her. For her, each honorific is a testament to her accomplishments and to her impact. She made my life better. She made your life better. Tonight I'm going to give 3 lessons from her life. Point 1, the status quo is often sexist and racist. Don't give in to it. Justice Ginsburg did not accept the world around her. She fought to change it, and she succeeded. For women, for the LGBTQ community, for people of color, she fought for us all. Like a modern-day prophet, she called our culture out for our injustices and led us down a more just path. She didn't scream from the hilltop like a prophet. She did it through her intellect and her position of power. And we need to do the same. Don't accept the world around you as enough. The status quo, even in good times, is bad. Example. I remember a few years ago, the United States Senate reached a milestone. The most women ever had been elected to the Senate. Maybe now 25 out of 100. I listened to so many rabbis' sermons, and I read so many liberal articles filled with joy at this remarkable milestone. And I agree. I say kol hakavod to those women and the people who elected them. All honor to them. But I find the notion that we should be satisfied with that condescending, offensive, and a tool of a patriarchal culture that tries to convince us all to be satisfied with a sexist status quo. As if women being accepted as adults with autonomy and authority is a favor. As if it's an act of great generosity by men to allow us the opportunity. The right to choose, the right to take time off work after giving birth, the right to equal pay are basic signs of fundamental human dignity. But the narrative we tell is that we fought for these rights and were granted them, and that we should be thankful, grateful even. But I want to back the narrative up a little bit because I'm not satisfied with it. My narrative starts with those rights being taken away from women. My narrative starts with white patriarchy that always expresses itself through control of women and our bodies, of women and our money, and perhaps most dangerously of all, a patriarchy that tries to control women and our minds. Don't be fooled by the status quo. Progress is not success. Exceptions don't prove rules. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not fooled by her reality. She wasn't intellectually tricked into accepting the status quo. She saw the world. She named it and called it out and fought for a better one, and so must we. She worked tirelessly around the clock to the very end to change the issues of her day. Never allow yourself to be fooled into thinking that progress is redemptive success. It is not. Complacency is the enemy of equality. Point 2, action. After suffering a profoundly painful personal loss, Justice Ginsburg famously said, "I wasn't going to just sit in the corner and cry." And neither will we. Frankly, we do not need to mourn her. That is the job of her family. We have a different job, and that is to act. Her death at this time is unthinkable. It is crushing. The political consequences of her departure could ripple for generations and generations. All of that progress towards equality could be wiped away. And I do, for one, feel like sitting in a corner and crying. And maybe some of you feel like sitting in a corner and crying, and maybe some of you have. The instinct makes sense, it's natural, it's human. Her loss is devastating, both in symbolic and literal proportions. But we can't. It is not the Jewish thing to do. Judaism says, na'aseh v'nishma, do first, and then after the doing, contemplate and reflect. We are deed before creed people. Vote now, lament later. Advocate now, be sad later. Secure justice first, reflect on it second. Remember, the very notion of justice is not a secular value, it comes from us. It's Judaism that teaches tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice you shall pursue. It's Judaism that preaches empathy. Remember the widow, the orphan, and the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Judaism coined the phrase, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, and the rest is commentary. It's the prophet Micah that taught us that God requires that we do justly, perform acts of loving kindness, and walk humbly with God. It's Judaism that birthed the phrase, let justice well up like waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. Our obligation is to work towards justice. There will be a time to weep by the rivers of Babylon later. We can cry for the promised land that we never got to enter then. If you are heartbroken by this loss, get to work now. Action is honoring Justice Ginsburg's legacy. It will make you feel better. It will make the world better. Remember, she did the same for you. Third point, the double bind. This week, the Louisville Police Department announced that there would be no true justice for Breonna Taylor, a young EMT who was a woman of color, who was shot dead while resting in her own bed by the police. For people of color, for the LGBTQ community, for all those who face the systematic doubling down of discrimination, we see you. We do not accept the injustice pervasively perpetuated against you. We will fight for you. The wrongs done to you are our problems. We must fix them. And I know this sermon has a lot in it, but so does the world. I keep coming back to an image in Torah of a circumcised heart, a piece of our flesh forever severed from our most personal selves. That's how I feel when I see the grave injustice done to this woman, to her family, to the African American community, and done to the female community, and to the community of all of those on earth who believe in justice. Justice Ginsburg was unparalleled in her contribution to women's rights, to civil rights, to LGBTQ rights, but we, you and I, need to do much, much more. We are broken, and we are trying to repair the world, but that world is nowhere near completed. To honor Justice Ginsburg, don't accept the status quo, act like your life depends on forcing change, and lift up those who are more vulnerable than you are. That is how we will honor her. Before I conclude, I want to take an aside and talk to two different groups in our community. First, the young people of the Village Temple. I've only begun to get to know you, but I'm impressed. You are more advanced than many of us, myself included, in terms of identifying discrimination of all kinds. Tonight, I want to offer a specific message to the young women, men, and non-binary folks in our community. Think about Justice Ginsburg and her legacy. Don't be influenced. Like her, find a way to be the influencer. Identify how and where decisions are made and find a way to put yourself in those positions. Do not defer. Do not maintain. Disrupt, disrupt, disrupt. That is how you will forge your path towards justice. And second, a specific word to the men in our community. To the men who support women, to the allies, we need you. We need you desperately and urgently. You often have more power than we do, and we need you to determine paternity leave and to take it. We need you to say, you can't speak to her like that. We need you to pay your employees equally, regardless of gender. We need you to hire and promote women. We need you to live Jewish values in your personal and professional lives. Together, we can continue to make real change. Justice Ginsburg died peacefully and naturally. She was a proud Jew. She had a mezuzah on her door and a Torah verse on her wall. She was a proud Zionist and a consistent source of leadership and influence in the organized Jewish world. As the first woman and the first Jew to lie in state, we are so proud and inspired that she was one of our own. There's been a teaching circulating that if you die during Rosh Hashanah, you are a tzaddik, a righteous person. Maybe it's true, I don't know. But I do know this. When someone dies, we say, Zichrona livracha, may her memory be for a blessing. But maybe you don't know. There's also another saying used particularly for certain women. It is, Yehi zichra mahapecha. May her memory be for a revolution. May it be so. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yasher koach.